Some really shocking stories to get into today regarding Paul Heyman being fired from his lead creative role on Monday Night Raw. Charlotte Flair talking about the possibility of having kids with her soon-to-be husband Andrade. So let's start off with the biggest story going on right now. Paul Heyman is reportedly gone from his major creative role on Raw. Remember a few months back, WWE made this huge public announcement that Paul Heyman was being promoted to one of the lead positions over on Raw's creative team. Paul Heyman has a great history with ECW and even ran Smackdown in the early 2000s when it was just a great high-quality show. So everyone was pretty excited for this announcement. If anyone knows good storylines and storytelling in general, it's Paul Heyman. So we all thought we were in good hands. For months now, we've heard all the back and forth rumors that Heyman and Vince McMahon were colliding on a lot of huge things in the WWE. One of their major disputes that Paul Heyman really won was the outcome of the 2020 Royal Rumble match. Vince McMahon was reportedly set on having Roman Reigns as the Royal Rumble winner, but it was Paul Heyman that pushed against him and made a strong case for Drew McIntyre to pick up the Royal Rumble win. That's exactly what ended up happening. Paul Heyman was able to win that little argument, and WWE ended up going with Drew McIntyre as the Royal Rumble winner. So Heyman definitely had a strong influence during this time. Paul Heyman's presence was really felt through certain storylines. The Maria Kanellis pregnancy storyline was an example of Heyman's storylines. It was reportedly his idea to have the entire "who is the father" sort of feel to the Maria Kanellis pregnancy storyline. Another one of Paul Heyman's idea was the storyline between Liv Morgan and Lana. Now, my personal view of these storylines was that it was great at first, but my biggest issue with these Paul Heyman storylines was that there were no payoffs at all. We had several weeks of Maria and Mike Kanellis drama, building up to see who is the real father, and then the story was just dropped. Maria and Mike were taken off of television and then released. Same thing goes for Lana and Liv Morgan, and we have ranted in the past so many times about just how terrible that story turned out. It was meant to be a one-night shocker with zero follow-up story. That's exactly what it turned out to be. So I enjoyed the concept of these stories. I just can't stand when the story is dropped out of nowhere after we invested so many weeks of getting into it, or when a story goes nowhere, like Liv Morgan and Lana. That's my biggest issue. I don't know if that issue rests on Paul Heyman's hands. Maybe they didn't allow him to go through with the follow-ups that he had planned for the story. Or maybe he was just into those short-term, no-payoff stories. But that was the biggest issue with some of those storylines to me. If you're going to introduce a story, then go all in on it and make sure you have the entire story and payoff ready. If you don't have it prepared or might drop the storyline completely a few weeks later, then just don't waste the viewer's time by getting invested in these stories. WWE later confirmed the rumors and had this to say about Paul Heyman and what will happen from here. In an effort to streamline our creative writing process for television, we have consolidated both teams from Raw and Smackdown into one group. Paul Heyman will concentrate on his role as an in-ring performer. So WWE really cleared a lot of rumors up there. It's not like Paul Heyman was completely fired from the WWE. He was fired from his creative role on Raw. Heyman will obviously still serve as a WWE character and focus on his managing role for Brock Lesnar. Other reports claim that although this news may be a shocker to some fans, the Superstars Backstage really saw the writing on the wall for this change. Other reports claim that the removal of Paul Heyman from that role is a Vince McMahon decision. Vince McMahon pays more attention to Raw than he really does to SmackDown, so the SmackDown team doesn't really have to push ideas through Vince McMahon as much as Paul Heyman and the Raw team had to do. Paul Heyman had his own ideas, but he also had to keep Vince McMahon happy, so he kind of had to meet Vince McMahon halfway on a lot of the decisions just to make sure Vince liked it as well. While over on SmackDown, they have a little bit more freedom because Vince McMahon isn't as invested on SmackDown the way he is on Raw. The Raw ratings have also been going down for months now, and this reportedly played a big role in Heyman's firing. From the ratings standpoint, yeah, Raw is putting up some below average numbers, and it could be seen as disappointing. Over the past few months, Raw has no competition on Monday nights. There's no football, there's no NBA playoffs, there's no sports or any live event that could take away any viewership from Raw. They've been the only live event on Monday nights and still can't pull in a large amount of viewers. So what's going to happen to the Raw ratings once all the sports come back in a few months? That will be interesting to see. Paul Heyman is great, a truly once-in-a-lifetime creative mind for wrestling, but Raw has felt a little off for the past few months. Not saying it was Heyman's fault, but maybe the fact that Heyman always had to hold back on some ideas because Vince McMahon turned it down is probably what made the show feel a bit unusual and inconsistent. Me personally, I find myself being more excited to see Smackdown over Monday Night Raw. Smackdown just has a whole different feeling and vibe to it that just feels more entertaining than Raw. I find myself looking forward to Smackdown as of late, but honestly, can't say the same about Raw. That's just my opinion. I definitely think Smackdown took over as the A show for the time being. When I think of Raw storylines off the top of my head, I think of the Raw Women's title, the WWE Championship, Edge vs. Randy Orton, and Seth Rollins vs. Rey Mysterio. Then for SmackDown storylines, you have Sasha and Bayley, Jeff Hardy's arrest, the SmackDown hacker, Braun Strowman, and Bray Wyatt, Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, Mandy Rose and Otis, with possibly Tucker getting involved soon, and so much more. It just feels like more storylines are taking place on SmackDown. Other reports claim that the Raw feeling backstage has been a mess lately, sometimes with the script being changed moments before air. The process was never smooth in recent weeks. It's not Paul Heyman's fault per se. It is a whole team effort, but Heyman is the scapegoat here and is just taking the fall for everyone's mistakes. The scariest part about the Paul Heyman firing is for all the new talent and all the new superstars that Heyman was behind. Heyman was reportedly really behind Drew McIntyre, Aleister Black, Cedric Alexander, the Street Profits, and so much more. So a big question being asked right now is what will happen to all of the Paul Heyman guys? Will they still be pushed or will they be forgotten about since a new head of the team is in charge? One of the biggest stories that could be in real trouble is Rey Mysterio and Dominic versus Seth Rollins. It's clear what's happening with the Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins storyline. We were building towards the in-ring debut of Dominic, likely getting revenge on Seth Rollins for what he did to his father, Rey Mysterio. It was reported that Heyman already had a storyline set for Dominic, but with Heyman gone, that also makes us question, what does that mean for Dominic's future? Will he still get to debut, or will the team change their mind on that story's direction? Another report claims that some individuals backstage were surprised that it took this long, and it was only a matter of time before Heyman was gone. It was even reported that people were making fun of all the new Paul Heyman guys, saying that Heyman went from having elite talent like Edge, Rey Mysterio, Kurt Angle, Chavo Guerrero, and Eddie Guerrero back in the day, to pulling a whole bunch of new guys out of catering in current day. This joke really doesn't make sense. Those catering guys are extremely talented, and they're only at catering because WWE didn't know how to previously use them. If given the right time and effort, some of those new Heyman guys could really become a huge star as well. SmackDown's roster is completely unaffected by this change, but it's majority of the Raw talent that is just terrified of the change and doesn't know what to expect. Some Raw stars were in line for a decent push from Paul Heyman, but some of them feel like they could be completely gone now. We'll have to see what happens next for Raw's decision. Could Charlotte Flair and Andrade be preparing to start a large family? Charlotte recently had this to say when asked about starting a family. I was like, Manny, Andrade, I want children. He was like, okay, I'm ready. Yes, he would be, but I just don't know. When's the right time? Am I selling myself short, not trying to reach for bigger things? Of course I think about it because of my age. But being able to face Trish Stratus at SummerSlam and seeing her as a mother of two and being considered the greatest of all time and having the best match on the show makes me see you don't have to worry about when and why and where. I definitely do want kids. I want the whole fairy tale. I want 3 kids, 4 kids. I want all of it. So Charlotte definitely wants a story similar to Trish Stratus. She wants to be a mother of 3 or 4 and still continue to wrestle and put on the best match on the show. Charlotte is currently 34 years old and, like she said herself, she really thinks about it a lot because of her age. We'll have to see how everything unfolds for Charlotte Flair and Andrade. What are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.